So the TRU Harbor program traditionally was in Newcastle, Indiana and Henry County. However, that building needs some construction. It needs a little bit of work done. So we're actually back on our Muncie main campus right now. We currently have 8 girls in our program, and that is not a lack of having referrals or having girls throughout the state of Indiana who need our services. The pandemic has played a lot in the workforce, if you guys know anything about that. And so getting people to come work has been a little bit of a stretch for YOC in general. TRU Harbor is not an exception to that. So we currently have 8 girls in our program, which is where we're going to stay right now until we can up our staffing resources. We are hoping to get back in Newcastle in our big, nice, pretty building, hopefully in the next few months once the construction is done in the building that needs done. So human trafficking is one of the oldest, biggest money makers in the United States of America and across the country, and it is no secret that it also affects children. I don't know what you guys, when you hear human trafficking, think of or what your mind goes to. A lot of people, it goes to the movies and what you see. A big white scary van pulls up, snatches a kid out of an alley and takes them, and now they're being forced into being trafficked, is what it's portrayed like in the media and on TV. That is not how it is in real life. A lot of our kids, if I'm being honest, are trafficked familially, which means their families are the ones who are trafficking them to make money or to get drugs or to do what they need them to do, so that way the family can be successful. So it's not some stranger who just pulls up. That has happened, but that is not how typically it works. A lot of our girls, like I said, are family or they're exploiting themselves. So all of you in this room, I'm sure, have access to lots of social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, right? And so our traffickers get to know our girls through social media websites. The internet has made it a lot easier for people to get access to our girls, right? And the traffickers spend a lot of time building relationships with our girls. So again, it's not like I start talking to a trafficker on Friday and by Saturday I'm trafficking. It can take months up to a year or 2 years before they finally get them to start selling themselves. And so basically the traffickers play on them psychologically, right? They exploit them. They make them feel like they're the only ones who can trust them, that they're the only ones who care about them. So they definitely put themselves in a position of being that one person, and then it makes the girls feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do things for him because he's done this for me, or he's the only one who really cares about me.
And a lot of times, like, they are the only ones meeting their needs. Like, they're not getting those needs met at home.
Yes.
A lot of our girls are runaways, and it's a lot of, like, doing things for survival.
Yes. So like Cassandra said, a lot of the sexual acts that our girls are doing are for survival, right? They need somewhere to sleep because they're on the run, because they didn't get along with their family, or they don't have a good home life in general, right? Like I said, when familial trafficking is mostly what we see, that's because our girls don't have a good home life, and so they're running from that, and then their traffickers are the ones that's able to make sure that they have food, money, place to sleep, drugs, whatever. And so that's what we see. We have TRU Harbor opened in 2018 in the summer. And since then, you've probably seen how many girls, Cassandra?
I was just told this number the other day, and I can't remember. I know it's over 30.
Mm-hmm. And since then, we have several girls who actually do leave the program successfully. And so for a kid to be discharged from our program successfully, we have courses. They have 5 courses that they have to work through. And then once they reach their 5th course, then we discharge them successfully from the program. Kids have been released other ways, unsuccessfully. Sometimes they're not ready, right? Those ties that they have to those traffickers are really strong, and no matter what we do, we really, really struggle with getting them to build relationships with us. So that's trauma. Our girls have been through a lot of trauma. I don't know how much all of you know about that, but that is the basis of what this is. And so to get kids, so in the course of the United States, for adults and for kids, it's getting people to see them as victims, because that's what they are, right? A lot of adults were getting charged with prostitution or different things when they have been trafficked, and they weren't treated as victims, and they really are victims. They're victims of trauma and things that have happened to them. Where was I going with that? So our girls have to work through the program. So they go to school within our program. If they don't have enough credits and we don't think they're going to graduate high school, we look at getting them a high school a GED or high school equivalency. They have to take that exam, and we pay for that. So some of the money from what you guys are donating goes to things like that, to pay for the HSE, to get them in classes. Remember I said it plays on their self-esteem and who they are, and they beat them down. And so we try to get our girls enrolled in things that make them feel who they are, right? And so we've had girls who've taken dance classes, gymnastics, guitar lessons, theater, anything that would make them remember who they are and who they want to be, and things that they want to do in life outside of what they've been told they have to do by their trafficker. So the money that you guys raise helps to pay for those things. So our girls can get the confidence they need and the self-esteem they need to be able to get away from those ties and to be able to live their life and to get money the right way, right? To be able to provide for themselves without having to do things to get it provided through them for someone else. We also our girls have what's called a TRU Teak, which is a store. And every week they get to go to that, and they buy good hygiene products, and they get to buy clothing or fake fingernails, fake eyelashes, makeup, smell good lotions, things that some of us may take for granted, and they buy that. So some of the money that you guys donate helps to stock that, can help to stock that as well, so that our girls have access to these items that make them feel good about themselves. Again, in our program they have access to video games, movies, they have MP3 players, they know the latest music and exciting and know all of that. And we don't let them get on any social media for obvious reasons, right? We got to get them out of that life, so they don't have access to that. They go to school in our facility, and they work through with our counselor. We have one counselor, her name's Morgan. They work very, very closely with Morgan to talk about the trauma and the things that they've been through in life, to get them in a good place so that when they go home, they can be successful adults. Last year we had a girl who was pregnant when she came into the program, and so we got her successfully into a foster family. We had a baby shower for her, got her all set up so that she could welcome her new baby and transition into motherhood as an independent adult. And so some of that would also help with that as well. I don't know, do you want to talk about any specific cases?
Well, like you said, we got her set up. Before she left, she was probably the most prepared kid I've ever seen. Like, she had what hospital she was going to, her birthing plan. We connected her with a lot of resources. We also had like an aftercare provider that checks in with her and makes sure she's doing okay. We had one girl, she came to us when she was 14. While with us, she discovered like her love for art, and she actually ended up, after she left, got a full scholarship to an art college, so she's going to be doing that. Almost all of our girls still call and check in on us, and like another big part of it is making sure that we're also working with the families too, so that our girls aren't going home to the same environment that like led to where they left. That plays a huge factor in like their success after leaving. A lot of our girls are just doing, like, they're working, going to school, just us like teaching them how to love themselves and giving them the support they need that they weren't getting beforehand.
Giving them the confidence that they need, for sure, to be who they want to be or who they are, and know that they're worthy of that and that they're valued and cared about. Our program is based on relationships, and so the staff and Morgan and everyone there really works hard to build really close relationships with our girls to help kind of sever those ties from their traffickers. It's not easy. Our girls run. Them running is a huge part of their treatment, right? When someone has told you, I'm the one person in your life that cares about you, it's really difficult. It takes them a long time to be able to get out of that, the life, as we call it. And so the part of their recovery is to run. And then it was not too long ago, two girls ran together, and then one called us from a gas station, and we jumped in the car and went and picked her up and brought her back. That is part of their recovery, is to do that, and then we welcome them back every time with open arms and thank them for calling us, because that's part of the journey to get them to the other side, for sure. I don't know how many of you know much about human trafficking or knew before we came in here. even in my line of work, and even though I've only been a part of TRU for the last few months, just still being a part of it, being a part of YOC, I still have family members who are like, that doesn't happen here. And I'm like, it absolutely happens here. One of our very first clients that we had at YOC before we opened the human trafficking program went to Yorktown High School. So it very much happens in Delaware County. It very much happens in the state of Indiana. That's why we have a program. So I think it's really awesome that you guys are wanting to learn about this and know about this, because like I said, there's several adults and people in my family who are like, what, that's a thing? Yes, unfortunately it is. I have a job because of that. Do you guys have questions? Yes.
Okay, I did have one. I know you said something about it earlier. Is there like a program or like a system or something that they can go into, like say for once they get discharged? Is there like a continuous, like, I'm trying to think, checkup period that they have to do?
Yes. So all of our kids have to be court ordered to placement, right?
Okay.
And so then they're court ordered either through the Department of Child Services or through the Juvenile Probation Department. And one of those two typically is who we get our referrals from. And so when they leave, based on whichever department that is, there's requirements that have to go afterwards. So for DCS kids, any DCS kid, that's the Department of Child Services kid. I'll try to not talk in acronyms because you guys don't know what I'm talking about. They have to, if they go discharged to home, then now we have to follow them for 6 months. And so we have an aftercare service coordinator who follows up with them to see how they're doing, what do they need. And then she helps to get them the resources they need. So, you know, our girl that we said that we left who was going to be a mom, we made sure that she had WIC signed up and that she was getting, you know, looking at getting how she was going to get her kid into daycare so that she could have a job. And she was taking night classes. And so we do have people who will follow them outside of that. Or we make recommendations. Sometimes, even if it's a probation kid, we'll say, yeah, they're ready to go home, but they still need counseling services with their family or with them after they have. And so they'll do that stuff on an outpatient basis. Because yes, it is really abrupt to be in this very structured environment where we kind of control everything and are giving you all this treatment to now we put you back in the home. There's got to be some other services and supports there for them to continue to be able to be where they need to be. Yes, that's a good question.
Can girls traffic other girls?
Yes, they can. So one thing that I went to the National Human Trafficking Conference in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago. And one thing I learned there is there's a program that basically, as soon as they come in, the rule is that they can't recruit each other. And so we talked about making sure that we're doing that from the beginning, because girls will traffic each other. They absolutely recruit each other.
We've had a couple.
Yeah.
And that is one of the main reasons that I know Katrina fought for TRU Harbor being separate from YOC.
Yes.
Is because we would get girls come in and then they would try to recruit other residents.
Yeah, traffickers want as many girls as they can get. That's more money for them, right? And so if I can use you to then now bring me your friends, then I multiply how many girls I have and how much money I can make. And so there's some like lingo in that, like who's a top girl and a bottom girl, right? There's a ranking system in that when you get really far into it. Some traffickers do take it pretty far. We have a girl who is 15, correct? And she is branded.
Oh, yes.
Right here on the side of her face.
She's 16, yeah.
She's 16, yes. And we just recently got her. She's a pretty high profile case. The FBI is involved in her case in the state of Indiana. And like I said, she has been tattooed right here. She was branded by her trafficker. She's still pretty connected to her trafficker. Our goal, honestly, before she leaves is to hope that she's not connected to him anymore. And we can get someone to volunteer to help get that removed.
And like a lot of our girls, they don't see them as traffickers, and it takes them a very long time. I mean, a lot of times it's their boyfriends. Like, they'll meet them online, they'll develop a relationship, and like I said, they provide their needs, and to them that is somebody they love, and it takes a while for them to realize that that's someone that was not good for them.
Yes.
So, if they don't realize they're being trafficked, how do they get into the system?
A lot of times it's because they ran away from home. I mean, almost every time it's because they ran away from home, or there's been some other neglect or abuse reported in the home if they are at home, or the parents find like their phone and there's videos. Some of our girls have been just from exploiting like social media, like sending pictures, selling videos and stuff like that.
Or our most recent was they busted a trafficker and one of the girls was there, and so that's how they found her. And she was a runaway and was there when they busted the trafficker, and so that's how we got her referred. There's lots of different avenues of how they get involved, but a lot of it is abuse and neglect. Our kids, it is kind of rare for our kids to come from really good home life, right? They usually have system involvement anyways, and then as you talk to them and more things happen, and then it starts to come out. There's a lot of red flags to being trafficked, and we just try to pay attention to that. We train, there's lots of officers, DCS caseworkers, they are trained to look for these red flags because it is it's not very rare, but it is more rare that a girl will come out and say, yes, I've been trafficked. It's more like, hey, she's selling pictures, she's hanging out with this older guy, she's running away, she has this tattoo on her face now, there's all these crazy things that are going on, and then we kind of are like, okay, yeah, that seems like that's probably a human trafficking case, and then we try to bring them in and do interviews with them and talk through them in counseling and get that to come out. Yes.
Do you guys work on trying to find who the trafficker is, or do you the police handle that?
The police handle that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really dangerous.
Well, I mean,
so, I'm not a cop and don't want to be a cop, so I don't. But we have to put things in place, yes, so that we know. Like our kids, our girls, it's really important whoever comes to visit them has to bring a photo ID. We have to be very cautious about screening phone calls, paying attention, because they do schoolwork online, that we're checking their computers to make sure that they're not contacting their traffickers. Remember, these are people they were really connected to.
Yeah.
They don't see them as bad. They don't see them as someone who is doing anything wrong. So any opportunity they get, they will reach out to them and try to. What I was
trying to say was if when you guys are getting them the help they need, is there any instances where you can get information from them about the trafficker?
Yes.
And then
Yes. I've had girls
and then we
get on
report it.
Google Maps
that's
and
what
point out houses to me,
Yes.
and then I would report it to their place in unit, and absolutely.
Yeah, so we are mandatory reporters in the state of Indiana, so anytime anybody tells us anything or we sense any kind of abuse or neglect, we have to call that into the state hotline and report that. And then from there, they refer it to the right people. So as the girls give us information, we are calling reporting things all the time to help them. The two girls that ran, we contacted the police immediately. Hey, she's saying, we picked her up at this gas station. She's staying with the other girls at a house close to there. This is the names of the guys that they were with. Trying to give as much information as we can because we want these people caught.
Yeah.
We don't want them to keep doing that.
Unfortunately, though, it seems like more often than not they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing our girls struggle with is they feel like they're being punished for something that somebody else did because they're in treatment and they're teenagers. So, that's another thing that they work through.
Yeah, the laws are really difficult, and to try to build a case and bring someone in. The two girls, our two most recent girls who have the FBI and the state police involved, that's what they're doing. They're working those cases to try to get enough information so that they can bring charges against these traffickers.
And up until 2017, teenagers could still be charged with prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's still kind of a stigma too, where the girls are looked at as they made that decision,
they're doing it
they're
to
kids.
themselves.
Yeah, they made that choice, so they're not victims, but they are.
Yes.
Do the same people ever come back? Because my mom worked in something sort of like this, and she would say that sometimes the same people would come back to the program and need help again.
Sometimes. With this program specifically, we're a little more cautious about letting girls come back once they've been released, but there are times that yes, they get out, they do really well, and then something happens and they get caught and then they come back. So it happens, yes.
And in those cases, it was going back to the same environment, and then they ran and had to do things for survival. And those two cases actually, we brought them back not to do the program again, but to get them established with collaborative care and get them in a home where they could
away.
Yeah.
Away from their biological parents so that they could have an opportunity to start over.
And also, I keep saying it's homes of abuse and neglect, and that's not any race, that's not any income level. A lot of our girls are actually adopted and live with really well-off families, and there's I think with the adoption piece is a lot of like the neglect they experienced beforehand. It results in a lot of trust issues, a lot of needing acceptance from others, and so on. Yeah.
Have girls ever been violent towards other girls or towards you guys?
They've been aggressive, yeah. Our girls aren't, it's not the most aggressive population, but yes, they can be. I mean, these girls are survivors, right?
Yeah.
And so surviving sometimes means that I'm aggressive, and that's how I have gotten, to show people what I can and can't do, or people aren't going to talk to me any kind of way. And so it's a fine line of allowing our girls to have autonomy, right? Allowing them to make their own decisions because they've been controlled, but then also having them in an environment where it's safe and that we are the ones that are in charge. And so that's a balance that our staff and Cassandra and us have to do all the time with them. Allowing them to do things that maybe YOC wouldn't normally allow them to do just because they need that independence and that autonomy, but then also making sure that we're providing an environment where they're safe and everyone is safe.
Have you had girls in the past or presently that once they sort of break a lot of ties and start to see themselves new, they're just an excellent resource for the younger ones in the program and kind of mentor them to some degree? Are they an asset sometimes?
Absolutely. I've had a lot of girls that just like kind of stepped up and like took the new girls under their wing and kind of helped them like through the program. 'Cause it's scary when you first get there. A lot of our girls have never been in placement before and have always like been on their own. And we also have a lot of our girls keep in touch with each other after they leave too, and they're resources for each other there too.
There's a program in the state of Indiana called Allies, and it's mentors. It's adult human trafficking survivors, and they come in and meet with our girls as a mentor. So, I've never been trafficked, even though I have a really good relationship with the girls, or can. It's good for them to have somebody who's actually been in the life that they can relate to. And so not all of our girls, but several of our girls have mentors through Allies that come and meet with them and talk to them, so that they do have someone who's like, hey, I survived, you can survive too, and build that relationship. So that's something we try to do pretty quickly in on their treatment, is to get them somebody who has been there and is recovered and is doing well. Yes.
Can boys get trafficked too? And if so, where would they go for that? Because I know you're one of the only places and it's all girls.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I do not believe there is a place here, not in Indiana.
I don't think there's a program specific to boys to human trafficking in Indiana.
So they
There's
would
not.
probably end up somewhere just like the YOC.
Probably in like a program in a residential facility somewhere in the state that isn't specific to that. So they can still get the treatment, right? They can still get the counseling because it's trauma. This is trauma. And all residential programs service trauma and try to meet that. But unfortunately right now there's not a program for underage boys that I'm aware of in the state of Indiana. It's the whole stigma of like only females are trafficked, which isn't true. Males can be trafficked just as easily.
So you talk.
We've had, I think our quickest like successful release was like right before 8 months, and our longest I think is 13 or 14 months. Sometimes it just takes them that long to get through the program. Sometimes it's finding somewhere safe for them to go, because sometimes we do have to recommend that like home is not the right place for them, and then we have to find a foster family. And before we just like, here, just go to this random family, we have to do family sessions with them, home passes, make sure that that's going to be a good fit too. Like we don't just send them to any random foster family.
And there's kind of a shortage of foster families in the state of Indiana, so they're hard to find, especially for teenage girls. Teenagers in general. Most people who want to adopt or foster kids want young kids. So for teenagers, 16, 17 years old, it's a little more difficult to find.
I will say the ones we do though,
They've been amazing. We've gotten really lucky, I will say that.
our girls that have gone to the foster family that are thriving so well, like doing so well, they call and check in and give us updates all the time. And
Can I give them your email addresses if they have any other questions?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Can we get a quick group picture with our special guests?
Yay!